Welcome to the Weekly Roar, coming live from the Lion's Den, helping new managers become great leaders and awesome bosses. And now, here's your host, Greg Storch.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Lion's Den. This is the Weekly Roar. You know, back in the middle of March, I kicked off my latest leadership series, How to Raise a Leader. That series was focused on the 10 things that a leader must do in order to raise more leaders. Well, last week we ended the series with the 10th session, and so this week I just wanted to spend the time with you providing a series summary, a recap of the important takeaways from the past 10 weeks. But first, I'm Greg Storch. I'm the founder of Lion Enterprise, a leadership development and coaching business where I focus on creating winning work cultures, one leader at a time. I am a certified professional leadership coach and a certified leadership speaker and trainer. Now, last week, I spoke about the importance of raising leaders who will raise more leaders. It's important to create future generations of leaders, and if we do it the right way, we can be confident that our influence as leaders will continue long after we're no longer around to lead. Now, if you missed that final episode of the series, just head over to my website at www.lion-enterprise.com and click on the Lion's Pride Library, where you'll find video number 106 for last week. And while you're in the Lion's Pride Library, stick around and check it out. That's my free resource for all of you on my website, and it's a great way for you to get more of the roar. Okay, let's go ahead and jump right into this recap because these tend to be a little bit longer because I'm covering the last 10 weeks. So I might go a little fast, but just bear with me, okay? Now, in the first lesson of the series, I spoke about how good leaders understand the responsibility of attracting and retaining good people. And I also spoke about how leaders are similar to talent scouts in the sports world in that respect. I called that episode, Why Leaders Must Multiply. Now, during that episode, I shared 5 things that you should consider when it comes to multiplying other leaders. So that first thing was the importance of your inner circle. Those you allow closest to you are the people who will determine how successful you are as a leader. When it comes to relationships, we're greatly influenced, whether we like it or not, by those closest to us. I mean, Jim Rohn even said that we're the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. What I do as a leader to develop those around me into better leaders themselves is going to have a direct impact on the outcome of my own leadership. If I multiply my leaders and develop them, I'll have a positive outcome. And the opposite holds true too. Should I fail to properly develop the leaders around me, and my results will be negative. Now, the second thing I mentioned during that session was it was more of a reminder about a John Maxwell quote that many of you are familiar with, and that was, everything rises and falls on leadership. This is another reason why it's so important for leaders to multiply leaders. The strength of an organization is determined by the strength of its leaders. When we multiply them, we give our organization the chance to grow as well. See, it doesn't matter if you focus on all of the other things like creative marketing, social media posts, the latest click funnel, the best tagline. None of that'll matter at the end of the day. None of it's going to help your organization, your family, your community, your congregation, wherever you're leading. Nothing's going to help it grow until you focus on developing your leaders first. Now, the quality of the leaders determines the quality of the company. If the leaders are weak, the company's weak. But if the leaders are strong, so is the company. And that's why John will always tell you that everything rises and falls on leadership. Now, the third thing that I talked about during that session was that if you want others to go along with you, they first have to get along with you. Leaders have to encourage others to come alongside them. They should work with other leaders, not against them. Look at them as helpers that can help you carry the burden of leadership. You've heard me say it before, we're better together. When people share a common direction, when they feel a sense of community, they tend to get where they're going more quickly and easier because they're moving with each other's momentum. Potential leaders can help carry the load. Now, the fourth thing was that leaders need to be able to attract other leaders because they need other leaders to help them carry that load. As leaders, we have to develop the ability to attract other leaders. You can do that when you start to think like them, express feeling that other leaders sense, and create an environment that attracts other leaders. You have to first attract leaders before you can develop them. And you have to develop them so they can help you carry the load. If I'm the coach and I want to build a great team, I need to go out and find the Peyton Mannings and the Tom Bradys. But before I can, I have to know what I'm looking for. And then the fifth thing that I mentioned was the importance, the role of mentoring plays in growing other leaders. Leaders create and inspire new leaders by instilling faith in their leadership abilities and helping them develop leadership skills they don't even know they have. One of the most important questions we have to ask ourselves as leaders is whether or not we're multiplying leaders. Are we raising other leaders? At the end of the day, if we want to be successful as leaders, we have to be able to multiply other leaders. We have to be able to establish a team because the fact is we can't achieve success by ourselves. We need others. When we realize that the most important task we carry out is to attract the right players to the team and multiply leaders, we not only add value to our organizations, but we add value to others. And when we can do that as the leader, it makes the burden of leadership a little easier. Our load gets a little lighter because we have others to help us carry it. Moving in the following week, I went into the second lesson that I called Creating an Atmosphere for Success. Now, that one was all about one of the toughest challenges a leader can face. Whenever leaders exhibit a positive attitude in an atmosphere that is also positive, it creates a space for others to achieve and grow. And what's more, when we get our teams to consistently produce excellent results, one accomplishment after the other, it creates momentum for everyone involved. Now, I shared with you the 5 things that help leaders create the right environment for potential leaders to grow and thrive. First was about modeling and how important it is for us to display the behavior we want other leaders to emulate. Remember, people do what they see. So the first thing we want to do is display the leadership traits we want our followers to emulate. Part of creating a culture or a climate that's appealing to potential leaders is modeling the behavior you want to see in them. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "The speed of the leader determines the speed of the pack." That's right. We're the pace setters for encouraging growth in new leaders. Now, the second thing to help create the right atmosphere for potential leaders was to make sure we identify their sweet spot. Find the potential in each potential leader and cultivate it. There's a lot to be said for having confidence and belief in someone. When we do that as leaders for our potential leaders, it encourages them to succeed in whatever they're doing. When we focus on people's strengths, it results in their growth, confidence, and success. Then the third thing that I mentioned back then that will help you create the right atmosphere for potential leaders was to get to know your people. Know what they want. It's truly amazing to see what happens when leaders become genuinely interested in those around them. It's a great motivator for them. So get to know your people and learn what they desire to achieve. Showing a genuine interest in your potential leaders is just what it takes to spark their drive and their determination to become successful. And then I followed with the fourth thing that helps us create the right atmosphere for potential leaders. And that was to remember that it takes one to know one. It takes a good leader to be able to see the potential leader in others. You have to know what you're looking for, so when you see it, you'll know it. The more you grow yourself in leadership, the more you'll look at things through a leadership lens. Having the vision of knowing what you're looking for will allow you to see the potential leaders in others. And then the fifth and final thing was that would help you create the right atmosphere for potential leaders was to avoid being a commitment phobe. What I was talking about was making a commitment to your personal growth. Now, if you want to be successful, you're going to have to pay the price that comes with it. It's going to cost you a commitment to lifelong learning because leaders are learners. It just takes one leader to commit to self-improvement, to pay that price for growth. Just one person to be willing to lead. When you have a leader who does these things, they have the ability to create the right atmosphere for the leaders who follow in their footsteps. Now, that third lesson was called It Takes One to Know One. It was all about the primary responsibility of a leader. During that episode of the Weekly Roar, I told you that when we're on the hunt for potential leaders, we have to know what they look like. So I shared my top 5 qualities that I look for in leaders. The first quality I shared was character. When it comes to leadership, having serious character flaws can sink your ship. This is where things like honesty, integrity, dependability, and a strong work ethic all come into play. Through observation, you'll see that their words match their actions. In other words, they walk the talk. If you're looking for potential flaws in character, look for things like the inability for a person to take responsibility for their own actions, or someone who doesn't make good on their promises. You could even consider someone who consistently misses deadlines as having serious character flaws. All of those things, if allowed to enter an organization, are going to weaken it. Now, the second quality was a positive attitude. They gotta have that. The right attitude can change everything, and it's one of the most important qualities a potential leader can have. The reason a positive attitude is so important to me is because with a strong positive attitude, a person can approach any situation with a different perspective than most. They see opportunities where others see obstacles. Their attitudes allow them to achieve things that others without positive attitudes can't. Leadership is less about position and more about disposition. So a positive attitude goes a long way. The third quality that I shared with you back then was people skills. A potential leader, of course, who doesn't have any people skills will soon find themselves without any followers, right? Successful leaders know that their behavior towards other people determines their behaviors towards them. Excellent people skills mean having the ability to connect with others, displaying a genuine concern for others, having empathy, and the ability to focus on ensuring interactions with others remain positive. And then that fourth quality that I shared with you was self-discipline. Great leaders always have self-discipline, but in today's world, where patience is a virtue and everything has to be done yesterday, it can be hard to see in potential leaders. Those who lack self-discipline may not be so inclined to pay the price of leadership, and that's why self-discipline is necessary. And then the fifth and the final quality that I mentioned was confidence. Potential leaders have to have confidence. People don't tend to follow leaders who aren't confident. A potential leader has got to display confidence when they lead. Having confidence empowers others and it instills confidence in the leader. The reason that so many people never fulfill their leadership potential is not a lack of intelligence or even opportunity. It's the lack of belief in themselves. Without confidence, there isn't much you can do. But with confidence, you can do anything. The main takeaway from that lesson was that good leaders seek out and find potential leaders. They mine for the gold in people. They don't go looking for the dirt. And once a leader finds potential leaders, they spend time turning them into other great leaders. They invest in them. They equip them with the tools they need, and they empower them to grow and develop. When a leader has the ability to recognize potential in another leader and also approaches search for potential leaders strategically, they ultimately find the gold lying underneath the mountain of dirt. Remember what I said, it takes one to know one. The fourth lesson was called The Leader's Nature to Nurture. That one was about the crucial tasks a leader must execute. Cultivating potential leaders is going to help us establish a strong foundation that we can continue to build upon. When we let our potential leaders know that we have full faith and confidence in their potential as leaders, it provides them with a sense of security and motivation to grow. During that lesson, I mentioned some of the things we should do to prepare ourselves to start cultivating potential leaders. And like everything else, I said, it begins with us. We must have our own role model first before we can become a role model for someone else. And I mentioned that when we're looking for role models to follow ourselves, they should have character and credibility. The second thing I mentioned was to gain the trust of our followers. More than anything else, followers want to believe in and trust those they follow. Establishing this trust is key because followers have to buy into the leader first, and they do that when they trust you. It's the single most important factor when we build relationships of any kind. And then the third thing I spoke about was transparency. Transparency lets our followers know that we're people they can not only relate to, but someone they can learn from. Then the fourth thing was that I encourage you to become a cheerleader when cultivating potential leaders. You know, encouragement shows your faith and confidence in their ability to achieve success. It's the positive reinforcement they need to hear so they can feel appreciated. It also helps us to avoid taking them and their work for granted. Small words of encouragement can be the difference between success and failure. When we nurture the people around us, the potential leaders we're responsible to cultivate and grow, everybody ends up a winner. And this is why nurturing our potential leaders is one of the most crucial tasks we face as leaders. Robert South said, if there be any truer measure of a man than by what he does, it must be by what he gives. All right, we're already almost halfway there. We're at the fifth lesson, and I called that lesson Preparing a Leader to Lead. And it was all about the daily requirement of a leader. Preparing tomorrow's leaders to be ready to lead, it's an ongoing process. And so during that session, I shared a 5-step process that is designed to help you prepare potential leaders to lead. So that first step was to focus on relationship building. Get to know your new leaders on a personal level, and that'll help you understand their desires, their strengths, and their weaknesses. Now, the second step was to get their buy-in. A leader has to get commitment because without it, they'll not achieve success. If the new leader is not willing to commit, abandon the effort and start working with those who are committed. Now, the third step was to set goals for growth with the new leader. Goals help set clear objectives and help new leaders get on the road to success. If we want to set our new leaders up for success, we have to spend the time introducing them to goal setting and, more importantly, goal achieving. And yes, there is a difference. Now, the fourth step was to set expectations. Our new leaders need to know what's expected of them so they have a fair chance to meet the expectations we've set. And don't forget to share a copy of their PD with them. And then the final step was to let them loose, but make sure you strike a balance. This is where responsibility, authority, and accountability all play a role in our ability as leaders to strike a balance between being too controlling, where we stifle creativity, and not being controlling enough. These three things will help leaders create the structure their new leaders need to work within so they can be successful at leading others. The sixth lesson was called The Art of Leadership Development. And that one was about the lifelong commitment we make as leaders. And I share that very few leaders move on to this part of leadership development because it requires a lifelong commitment to develop their leaders to reach their full potential. It's hard work. This was the lesson where I shared the 6 actions that good leaders will take to develop their potential leaders into the best leaders they can be. The first action was to identify the motivators. We start by finding out what the potential leader really wants. Through a positive relationship with potential leaders, we can be able to discern their motivations simply by asking them straight out or making your own observations. We have to find their motivations, and we do that by learning what they want and helping them get it, and making sure that the juice is worth the squeeze for them. When leaders can address these 3 things, then they can get their potential leaders motivated to start their path of growth. The second action was to open your ears and shut your mouth. I shared that good leaders who are developing their potential leaders must be good listeners. And to do that, they have to keep their ears open and their mouths shut. Good leaders are good listeners. Being a good listener allows you to listen to their ideas and opinions. And when you actually do take their ideas and use them, make sure you give them credit for it. That instills a sense of contribution and value in the potential leader. It also encourages their creativity. This is a really important action to take because if you instill confidence in potential leaders by listening and sometimes using their ideas, they have the opportunity to develop their judgment. And then the third action was to model growth behaviors. Potential leaders, they have to understand the importance of personal growth and the intentional actions that it takes in order to do it. One of the best things a leader can do for those they're developing, in addition to modeling it, is to help them develop their own growth plans. In our capacity as the developer of leaders, we have to keep them growing. We have to model it, we have to encourage it, and we have to reward it. Potential leaders are like trees in the sense that they should expect to grow their entire lives once that seed of leadership has been planted. Then the fourth action was that we have to switch it up. Leaders need to keep things new, fresh, and challenging for their potential leaders to avoid them becoming complacent. When we're talking about developing people, switching things up is a great way to develop others. When things don't stay the same, when we switch things up, it keeps our potential leaders on their toes, which makes them stretch, learn, and grow. And then the fifth action was to Focus on excellence, not perfection. Aristotle taught us that we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit. When leaders strive for excellence, it drives their people to shoot for the top, to be the best they can be. It helps to avoid doing the bare minimum or what's just acceptable. It also uncovers their character. Excellence breeds character, and character breeds excellence. So leaders should demand excellence in order to develop their potential leaders into future leaders who will also demand excellence from themselves, as well as the people that they will someday lead. It's a great cycle to begin. And then the final action number 6, was to redefine confrontation. Confrontation is something I think most people naturally try to avoid. It's uncomfortable, but avoiding it just makes things worse. So that's the last thing we want to do when we have to confront negative behavior. If we were to redefine our thoughts and feelings around confrontation, we could start to use it to our advantage and turn these situations into a win-win for all involved. As leaders, we have to take these opportunities to build up our potential leaders and identify their problems so they have an opportunity to learn and grow and improve. When all is said and done, the effort we invest in the development of others is what stands as our testament to our lasting impact in the world. I said buildings are going to fall and monuments will crumble, but what we do for others, how we develop them to reach their full potential, is all that will remain. That's why the art of developing potential leaders is such an important lifelong commitment that great leaders understand and accept. All right, that brought us into week 7, and the 7th lesson was called The Importance of Building a Dream Team, which is where a leader sees their highest return. Being part of a team can be really rewarding, and when you're on the right team, it can be a really powerful experience. So during that lesson, I shared 6 qualities that successful teams all share. As leaders, if we cultivate those qualities in the group of leaders we're developing, they'll become a cohesive team capable of things they never ever thought possible. So the first quality was that they care for each other. That mutual caring for one another is what builds a strong foundation upon which everything else is built. The second quality was that they all know what's important. Being part of the team means that everyone has a role to play towards scoring for their team. That's why it's important for leaders to ensure that each and every team member understands what's important. And then the third quality was that they communicate effectively with each other. Communication is one of the 3 things that makes a team and not just a group of people. Now, the fourth quality was that they grow together. Without growth, neither the team nor its members are going to get better or improve. The 5th quality was that each person has a special role to fill. Everyone takes a role that fits not only the goals and needs of the organization, but also their personal talents and abilities. And the 6th quality was that everyone is willing to pay the price. Without gaining the conviction of each team member that their common cause is worth the price they have to pay, they'll never score. They'll never win, and the team will never succeed in the way that they truly want to. Dang, okay, man, we're cruising right along. That brings us to week number 8. I called that one The Leader's Joy of Coaching, and it was about that exactly, how coaching a dream team provides a leader with their greatest joy. Not everybody can attract the players they need to make a dream team. In order to do that, a leader must possess certain qualities. So in this lesson, I shared 8 qualities of a dream team coach that earns loyalty and respect. The first quality was that the coach knows how to pick the right players. When you begin with the right people in place, then you'll avoid problems later down the road. This is an important point because if you start with the wrong material, you'll never be able to turn them into the dream team. The second quality was that the coach constantly communicates the game plan. Every good coach has a game plan. The game plan sets the course and direction of the game as well as the development of the players throughout the season. But the plan isn't going to work unless the leader shares it with those who have to execute it, the players, and they have to do that frequently. The third quality of a dream team coach was that they take time to huddle. The huddle is an important opportunity for team members to come together, review the plan and how it's supposed to be implemented. Taking time to huddle gets all the players on the same page. When your team members take time to huddle, it gives them a chance to focus, and we can all use a little refocusing. Even if you feel like you communicated the game plan clearly, it never hurts to refocus on the important aspects of the plan. The huddle is a great time to do that. The fourth quality was that the coach knows what motivates their players. When you want to bring out the best in someone, you have to know them well enough to know what they want, and you have to be able to provide it to them as a source of motivation. Bringing out the best in team members requires that leaders know them and what's important to them. If you want the players on your dream team to produce, remember this: motivate and appreciate. Now, the fifth quality was that the leader of a dream team excels in problem solving. Good leaders see problems as opportunities to learn, grow, and improve. When it comes to problem solving, leaders have to stay one step ahead or they'll quickly fall one step behind everyone else. Be creative and use your people as resources when problems arise. That's one of the reasons why leaders work so hard to select and develop those they're training to begin with. The sixth quality of a dream team coach was that they provided the right support needed for success. They facilitate, not dictate. When leaders facilitate, they create an environment of support, which allows players and leaders to be involved together. And that gives the team the best chance for success. Then the seventh quality was that they command the respect of team members. A coach has to have the respect if they expect their players to do what they ask. Respect is something we earn over time. You all know that. And if you aren't trusted, you'll never be respected. Theodore Roosevelt told us, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's so true. When your team members can see that you really genuinely care about them, they'll listen to you and they'll also respect you. And then the eighth and final quality was that the leader understands the level of all of the team members. All team members have different levels of effectiveness, which requires us to approach them differently when it comes to our leadership. I shared about how it was like being a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, and a senior in school, and how at each one of those levels, the players will require a different level of time and attention from us as the leader. Your freshmen won't quite be ready to work independently, so we would have to instruct them every step of the way. Whereas the sophomores, they require more of a coach. They rely on direction and feedback. The juniors, well, they're the players who just need support. They can work without direction, but they still need some support. And of course, they need encouragement. And then finally, you would have your seniors who are experienced and can work on a task without intervention or help. Here we're just leading these players. If you remember, I also spoke about delegation in that episode, and I shared some common traps that we can fall into that prevent us from delegating properly. Those were the confidence trap, the personal enjoyment trap, the habit trap, and the I can do it best trap. If you're willing to give all you got, you'll be ready to coach your own dream team. And once you do, you'll see that as a leader, it'll be one of the greatest joys of your life. All right, 2 more weeks to go. We had our 9th session, and I called that one, Why Good Leaders Add Value to Others. When leaders invest their time developing other leaders, it's always a win-win situation. In that lesson, I shared the value we can add to others and also the value we gain as leaders by doing that. The first thing we do as leaders that adds value to other leaders is that we set the example for others to emulate. We have to model the behaviors that we expect to see in our followers. Remember, people do what people see. The second thing we do that adds value is to provide vision and direction. Successful leaders create an inspiring and compelling picture of the future. The third thing we do that adds value is that we provide encouragement to others. And I shared the concept of encouraging leadership, which is a process that focuses on strengths and contributions in order to drive motivation and performance to a higher level. The fourth thing was that we instill a solid belief in them. When people see themselves in a positive light, they act accordingly. When people know you believe in them, they'll always rise to meet that belief. Mark Twain told us, a man cannot be comfortable without his own approval. The fifth thing that we do as leaders that adds value to other leaders is that we empower them. Leaders do that by providing opportunity, security, and freedom. Those are the ingredients in the recipe for feeling empowered. As I said, leaders gain value at the same time they're giving it away to others. Here were some of the things that add value back to us when we add value to others first. And that first one was loyalty. As leaders, it's our job to create an environment where trust and loyalty are the rules and not the exceptions. Loyalty serves as the cornerstone for healthy relationships. Another thing that leaders get back in return is encouragement. Yeah, they need encouragement too. Being a leader is hard work, and it's nice to have other leaders with you who are there to support and encourage you along the journey. Now, one of the biggest things we get back as leaders was time. When we invest our time in others, it helps them to learn and grow, ultimately increasing their skills to where they no longer require a lot of our time. And another thing we gain from adding value to other leaders is the attraction of other good leaders. Attracting good leaders is how organizations are able to thrive and continue to grow. Without that pipeline, the organization will eventually wither up and die on the vine. And last but certainly not least, we gain increased influence as a result of adding value to others. When we add value to other leaders, their influence expands, and in return, ours expands along with theirs. It's a multiplying effect. Raising leaders can be life-changing for everyone involved. Both the leaders being developed and those who are developing them all received help from someone else to get where they are today. It's through the process of raising new leaders where we get to realize that two-way street of value where what we give, we get back in other ways. It's a value proposition you just can't pass up. That brings us to the last week, and I call that one the importance of next-gen leadership. When leaders raise the next generation of leaders, then they've made a lasting contribution to their leadership. Over the previous weeks, I had talked about all the things that we can do as leaders in order to raise other leaders. I spoke about attracting leaders, creating the right environments for them, how we could nurture and train them, and even how we develop them. You even heard about the importance of coaching those potential new leaders. But I also mentioned how our work as leaders isn't over until we've developed potential leaders to develop yet another generation of leaders. And that's how we landed on this lesson. I began that lesson by sharing the 3 things that serve as indicators for us that they're capable of becoming a leader who can also develop future leaders. Those 3 traits were desire, the desire to want to lead; good relational skills. Leadership is a relational skill, how we interact with others; and having practical leadership skills. And those skills included things like people management skills, communication skills, and of course, skill in persuading and influencing others. I then shared 3 different scenarios where we could be faced with developing potential leaders. And all 3 were very different because potential leaders, they come in different packages. So the first scenario was developing a follower into a leader. And that's where I shared the 4 E's that you can use to develop them. The first E was environment, a positive environment for non-leaders to develop and grow in during their journey to develop into a leader themselves. The second E was encouragement. When a leader encourages their non-leaders, they become more inclined to persevere through the early challenges. The third E was for empower. Give new leaders some of your authority until they grow and develop their own. And the fourth E was for expose. Expose their strengths. When leaders play to their strengths, they give them the best opportunity to get some quick wins, which leads to confidence. Now, the second scenario was developing a manager into a leader. The challenge is that managers think differently than leaders. That's why I shared 5 characteristics of leadership thinking, which were: first, they think big. Leaders have to constantly show those they're developing the big picture and focus on possibilities. When leaders maintain focus on the big picture and away from problems, the people they develop will start thinking big too. Second, they think in terms of others. Leaders have to be able to teach them to think in terms of others first, how they can promote them, develop them, and take them along the road to success. The third one was that they think continually. Leaders promote it to their potential leaders by asking questions. That helps potential leaders to develop a habit of thinking. And then the fourth characteristic of thinking was that they think bottom line. When leaders consistently focus on the bottom line, they create an environment where the people they're developing start to determine what it is before being asked for it. And then the last one was that they think quickly. And I told you that good leaders size it and seize it. They size up a situation quickly and they seize it immediately because they always think in terms of the big picture. And that brought me to the last scenario I shared with you, and that was developing a good leader into a great one. When leaders get to work with and develop good leaders, they gain momentum. And in that scenario, I shared 2 things that leaders should focus on in order to move them from good to great. The first was, of course, developing a personal growth plan. While they may be already growing, they may not have a personal plan to do it. And then the second one was to create opportunities for them that result in their stretching and ultimately their growth. Focusing on those two areas will help leaders move past any point where they never thought they could ever go. There's going to come a point in our journeys where we reach our capacity to do more than we're already doing. We're just one person. If you're a leader who has learned how to raise other leaders, then chances are great that you'll be able to accomplish more than your physical limitations allow you to. Remember what I said before. We don't achieve anything significant in life without the help of others. And when it comes to raising leaders, the only way we'll be able to continue doing more and more is to do it through other people. So I'm going to just leave you with this one simple final question. And that is, what are you doing today that is helping to raise our potential leaders for tomorrow? Wow. There you have it, folks. The series summary for how to raise a leader. I hope you enjoyed this series as much as I did sharing it with you. I appreciate you tuning in each week. So thank you guys so much. Okay, so you're probably wondering what's coming next to the Lion's Den. Well, let me tell you. Starting next week, I'm going to begin a brand new leadership series on the Weekly Roar, and I'm calling it Effective Thinking, the Pathway to Success. Each week, I'm going to speak about essential types of thinking that are designed to help you reach your full potential. No, I am not going to be telling you what you should be thinking, but I am going to attempt to help you learn how to think better. But I'm super excited. What's really even more cool is that I'm going to do something different this time. Over the next month, starting next Wednesday, each week I'm going to deliver a micro training video that I'll just post in the Lion's Den Facebook group. There won't be a weekly roar, so to speak, that you're used to seeing right at 11. But every Wednesday, starting next Wednesday for 4 Wednesdays, you'll have access to that micro training video. The video will remain posted for the entire week before being replaced by the next one. Now, once I've completed the 4 micro training videos, I'll pick back up on the traditional weekly Roar watch parties each Wednesday, same time, same place. So it's going to look like this. Micro training videos posted in the Lion's Den every Wednesday, starting on June 10th through July 1st. Then on Wednesday, July 8th, we return to the more traditional weekly Roar format where I'm going to launch the new series as a watch party, just as I have been. So just go to the Lion's Den next Wednesday, anytime, to find your first micro video that's going to answer the question why you might want to change the way you think. All right, everybody, until we meet again next Wednesday, remember, be powerful, but stay poised, just like a lion. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching the Weekly Roar live event at lionenterprise.com. If you enjoyed this video, please tell others to join us each week here in the Lion's Den. Thanks again, and see you next week.